So Congressman James Clyburn revealed to CNN over the weekend that the House might actually wait until after Biden's first 100 days to get around to sending articles of impeachment over to the Senate.
We'll take the vote that we should take in the House, and she will make the determination as when is the best time to get that vote and get the managers appointed and move that legislation over to the Senate. It just so happens that if it did go over there for 100 days, it could be. Let's give President-elect Biden the 100 days he needs to get his agenda off and running, and maybe we'll send the articles sometimes after that.
Well, that's an interesting strategy. With us to discuss, Democratic strategist Colin Rohero and Hill national political reporter Jonathan Easley. It's good to see you guys. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, absolutely. Jonathan, let me start with you, just in terms of the actual ramifications of this, because there's a lot of talk here flying around in Washington. A president has never been impeached after the fact. The reason that they would do so were to bar him from holding public office. We don't know whether they would pass constitutional or court muster in the Supreme Court. And second, I mean, how are some Republicans likely to respond to this? Do you think there would actually be enough votes? I believe the number is 17 in order to actually convict the president after the fact. And then finally, where does Joe Biden kind of fall in all this? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot to consider right there. I mean, as far as whether Republicans have enough votes, the 17 that they would need in the Senate, we don't know right now. We are seeing Republican senators more likely to speak out against Trump than they ever have been. Obviously, both Toomey and Murkowski calling on Trump to resign, Sass saying that he would consider articles of impeachment. So it seems like the energy is building in the Senate, at least. I mean, with Joe Biden, you know, the argument that Congressman Clyburn just made there, not wanting his first 100 days to be gummed up by impeachment proceedings, I mean, that's a real concern. When Joe Biden steps into the White House, he's got this raging pandemic. He's got a lot of pressure to pass a very significant COVID relief package that he's talking about spending trillions of dollars on, and not even to mention the fact that he's got to get his cabinet nominees confirmed, and a Senate impeachment trial is going to consume Washington. It would absolutely consume his first 100 days. At the same time, you know, anger over this awful event is as high as it's ever going to be. I mean, people are dealing with PTSD from this right now. And it's, you know, 100 days sounds like a political eternity. It seems like if you're going to do this, it seems like now is the time to do this. So it's a bit of a pinch, really, but it seems like the momentum right now, at least in the House, is in moving swiftly to impeach and potentially bar the president from ever running again.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, Colin, what do you think about all this? Because I just look at it, and you can't be like, on the one hand, this is urgent, this is existential, this is something we must do right now, and then on the other hand be like, we'll send it along maybe 100 days from now to the Senate. It's no big deal.
Yeah, I understand that sentiment. I think if you look at what we're facing now, we've got a three-pronged crisis that Joe Biden is going to inherit as soon as he steps into office. We have a raging health crisis, we've got an economic crisis, and we've got a very serious crisis in government. And I tend to agree that if we are focused on only impeachment during those first 100 days, that all of those things are going to just feed into the fact that we can't get the things done that we need to get done for the American people in this short period of time that Joe Biden has to prove that he's going to have a government that runs well. I also understand, on the other hand, this horrific event, you have to take a stand against it. And I think the real concern, functionally speaking, is can he ever run for office again? Now, my guess is that you'll get 17 Republicans because the Republicans don't want to give the Republican Party back to Trump again or have the opportunity for him to try to take over the party as he has. And I would hope that would be the case. I would hope that they would remember this event. While, you know, momentum is there right now, I'm not even sure it could get through now before he was out of office. You know, would the Senate hold a trial and do it before? Probably not.
Probably not. Exactly, Colin. And that's kind of where I want to focus on. So if this is going to happen, it's probably going to happen as Biden, if Biden is president, Colin. And I think Biden would be a fool to want to take up valuable Senate time and national politics and focus it on his predecessor. Here's what I said this morning. If Joe Biden and the Democrats want to make sure that Trump is never president again, pass $2,000 checks and make sure that you distribute a vaccine effectively. I mean, that's probably the easiest possible thing you could do. What do you think, Colin?
Yeah, I don't know. I do think you have to clip Trump's wings to keep him out of government. I think he posed an incredible danger to the country that we saw manifest over lies, and he's not going to stop. And we all know he's a vindictive person. He's going to continue to try to take action against Republicans and Democrats and the government as a whole to make himself vindicated for what he feels, was probably a bad end, obviously, to his presidency. So I think they have to take an action in addition to doing positive things. I think there has to be some kind of consequence, and just forgetting about it is essentially no consequence, which has been the story of Donald Trump's near entire life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sagar and I have a difference of opinion on this one, because I also think, look, if your concern is over the efficacy of the Biden administration, that will be hamstrung also by having Trump hanging out there playing will he or won't he potentially run for president again. So my view is just pretty simple. Like, it's very hard to predict how any of this is ultimately going to play out. So you have to judge things just on the merits of what's right and wrong right in this moment, even if the consequences are uncomfortable in the first 100 days. Jonathan, you've been doing reporting on the sort of thinking within the Republican caucus and what their reflections are on last week and the sort of growing divides there. What's your sense of how people who, look, this must have been a searing experience, having to be locked down, fearing for your life as, people are roaming through the Capitol and rampaging through the Capitol. How has that changed the thinking within the Republican Party?
It's a mess, right? And the Republicans I was speaking to are just, absolutely filled with despair over this catch-22 they're in, where they're caught between, doing what's right and this President Trump figure who has just still enormous influence over the Republican Party. And in private conversations, they're talking about the Republican Party cracking up completely. I don't know logistically if that anything like that could even happen, if there are enough sort of Chamber of Commerce Republicans out there to even branch off. But no one really knows what to do. There's a lot of anger, obviously, at President Trump and the way that he's handled this and incited this riot. But he's being rebuked right now by a lot of Washington Republicans, but I think the big tell was the 120 or so House Republicans that still voted to challenge the Electoral College votes after the riot on Capitol Hill. They're doing that because their constituents probably wanted them to. And when you get outside of Washington, I think maybe there are some grassroots Republicans that have a problem with the way that this all went down. But at the same time, I also think with what you're seeing with sort of big tech using this opportunity to sort of just run a truck through the opening that Trump gave them, a lot of this polarization that already existed is just going to be completely exacerbated by this. And whether Trump can run for office again is a major question. But I think even if he can't, that it's hard to see what direction the Republican Party goes right now, because that populist strain is still very much coursing through the entire party, and Trump has enormous influence over the party, as politically weak as he is right now in Washington.
That's right. It's a great point, guys. All right, stick with us. We're going to be back right after this.